Well, folks, thanks for tuning in for a Saturday edition. A quick look at the week ahead for you. We touch on some of the things that will put you on the leading edge when you're talking to friends. You'll already have seen this coming, and also some of the things we predicted that you, as faithful followers here and watchers and listeners, you already would have been tuned in and ahead of a lot of the people you're talking to. The rat situation is getting people's attention ongoing as the cruise ship where the Hantavirus, which is this virus they say comes from rats, and a number of people have died already. And so we're looking at this as the week ahead, and I think in the couple of weeks ahead you're going to see more and more interest related to rats. Yes, that's it. Already we're seeing there's a documentary out, and it's been out for a little while, but just happened to be timely. Watch for people tuning into it. It's a 14 documentary about rats in New York City. I've been to New York City a number of times. I've lived there, and I can tell you rats are a key part of the population. So watch for rats. And folks, just to put you at ease, this hantavirus that's coming from the cruise ship, apparently they've done some tracking. And how did rat virus get onto the cruise ship? At one of the stops, a few of the cruisers, in looking for their own kind of special sort of exploration while they're at these stops, wanted to do some bird watching. Some locals told them go to the dump, the local dump. And of course, in that particular third world-ish country, the dumps were not as managed as they are, let's say, in Canada, United States. And they went to the dump, and walking through the dump, it is assumed, where rats, of course, infested, they carried some of the germs back to the ship. Folks, if you're going cruising, don't go to dumps for pleasure and for profit. There's a lot of other things to do. Anyway, the hantavirus, it is not going to sweep the world. You do not have to listen to the people who are saying it's a conspiracy. This was a very unfortunate incident, but increased study of rats, which also might lead to people more interested in politics. We'll see where that goes. We talked about earlier in the week about Victory Day in Russia, and the fact that President Putin, yes, as the regular watchers here and listeners, you will know, we talked about this coming and how the reflection really is not the power of Putin, but the somewhat lessening power of President Putin in Russia. So in spite of the fact the Victory Day parade, which just took place, showed off all their armaments and who's got the biggest missiles and biggest ballistics, in fact, there's an underlying concern there. Watch in the coming weeks for what happens to President Putin. He's going to become increasingly desperate, and that means interesting things going on internally. We don't know what's going to happen, but part of a reflection on that, where his position might be weakening, he's actually agreed, right now they've agreed to a 3-day ceasefire and a prisoner swap. So these are signs that Putin may be having second thoughts. Let's see. The CIA analysis is suggesting, in terms of how long can people hold on, in Iran, that suggested that the blockade maybe could last for more than 4 months, because Iran has the ability to, first of all, keep their starving people under submission. And one of the things is it's this game of chicken. We've been talking about it for quite a while. Iran is able to starve its people a lot longer than the U.S. government is able to starve its people. What I mean by that is because the Strait of Hormuz has been blocked in many ways. There's one of the key elements, people aren't fully aware of this, fertilizer that goes to farming and the agriculture community around the world, and fertilizer comes from, believe it or not, those oil and gas related products and other similar chemicals coming from the Middle East. And this is going to have a significant impact on prices, because if the cost of fertilizer is going up, that's going to the end result, the price of the food when you get to the market. Add to that, certainly in the United States and in Canada, as inflation continues. Remember, what is inflation? And challenge your friends on this. Inflation, the main reason, not the only, the main reason for inflation is government spending borrowed money. GSBM. And every time you hear that politician from whatever party talking about the fact he's going to spend more money to make you happy, just realize it's going to be tougher for you to buy groceries. Anyway, the main help, or the main encourager of the Iranian vicious regime, the people that keep the Iran tyrants going, are mainstream media, because they constantly reflect that the U.S. economy is going to crumble because of the attack on Iran. And so the Iranian dictators are just saying, we can just starve our people longer than they can. Let's see what happens with that. Let's see if that's going to come out to be true. Remember right here, for the last 2 days, we talked about keep an eye on these municipal elections in the UK, in Great Britain. And a lot of people were saying, well, what's a big deal about municipal elections? Well, it's a forerunner of national elections, and the Labour Party was swept out of office remember, this is municipal and regional councils. This isn't their members of parliament, but it's a forerunner of what could come. The Labour Party, in some districts where they had Labour control and regional councils for 100 years, lost to the UK, the United Kingdom Reform Party, with, in fact, in most cases, the Conservative Party coming in third. So Nigel Farage, who was the leader of he is the leader of the Reform Party, is quite happy today. And as we predicted, there would be this shakeup. You'll remember, those of you who were watching and listening, even 2 weeks ago, we talked about this. And if you were telling your friends, then you would be seen as a prophet today. Labour, the reason Labour, in fact, did a little better than the Conservatives, and the Conservatives coming in third place. And remember, Reform coming in first, the Conservative Party in the UK started backing off of things like people's concern about illegal immigration. The Conservative Party there started getting worried about the mainstream media in the United Kingdom. They said, no, we can't talk about illegal immigration. That's going to make us look, that we don't want immigrants, which is a lie, but that's what the leftist media does. And issues related to crime and the rape scandals that are going on among so many of the young people in the UK. The Conservative Party decided to play it safe. You cannot play it safe with things that matter to people's hearts and minds, and the Reform Party has spoken to those, and they had a big sweep. Let's see if that continues. Looking at the Canadian economy, of course, there's Prime Minister Carney is going through a remarkable period of popularity, and that is because, one of the reasons is because mainstream media consistently, mainstream media affects the undecided. Undecided at any particular time in a population can be anywhere from 5% to 12% of the electorate. And so when you are constantly, this brilliant strategy on the Liberal Party's part, they constantly show Prime Minister Carney traveling the world, that shot of him coming down off the steps of an airplane, the shots of him meeting with world leaders, and you see him, there on the tarmac. These are all positive shots. There are no trade deals being signed from this, but very positive imagery. And as we predicted here, because the government is not dealing with inflation, because the government continues to want to interfere with the economy, we said that is going to be hurtful to the economy, and the numbers are just out. The Canadian economy dropped 18,000 jobs in April. Unemployment now in Canada is at a 6-month high. Folks, the more intervention you have in an economy, the harder it's going to be on the broader population. One thing that the federal government has done, they've said they really are going to speed up the length of time it takes to approve projects, major projects, infrastructure projects. So watch for that in the week or so ahead. The cabinet is saying that they will give a green light, that they'll approve these projects before even the technical assessments happen. These technical assessments can wind on for months, if not years. And in Canada, when you add the consultation process with all the groups that are going to be involved, you have more and more companies who are thinking, Canadian companies thinking of investing, or international companies that are looking at Canada. They've been discouraged. They say, why would we invest in a project that could take 5 to 15 years to get approved and then wind up having it shut down? So the federal government seems to be waking up to that. Let's see what happens. Is there some growing awareness in our public schools that maybe all of the focus on the trans type stuff is not good? And we just had a situation in, of all places, the city of Regina in Saskatchewan and the province of Saskatchewan, where teachers at the Campbell Collegiate School, they had taken their grade 9 students, a couple times a year they take them out to see the theater, and the play that was being shown there at the Globe Theater all of a sudden broke into drag queen dancing and got very sexually explicit. And kudos to the teachers at the public school there, because most teachers won't stand up on this because they're afraid of being called names. They actually pulled the kids out of that. The parents are applauding them that, but the theater is really, really mad and saying that they're somehow transphobic. No, you know what it is? Parents and teachers are getting a little bit tired. Whether it's male, female, gay, or straight, if you're coming dancing out and flexing your body parts and gyrating in front of young kids, you know what? Some people are going to be, most people don't want that. Most people say, let adults do what adults want to do. But when it comes to the kids, let's be a little wiser. And so they walked out. Good for them. Well, another trend, remember Saturdays here, we talk about what's coming up. There's an interesting article in the New York Times, and it's talking about somewhat of a reboot now. People on the exercise scale of things, if I can use the word scale, going back to Taibo, back in the 90s. When I was young, Taibo was really sweeping, and it was a sort of combination of taekwondo and boxing and aerobics, and it was kind of all put together and just really swept. And then it kind of backed off and disappeared. People swinging back to that. There's a article over in the publication called Airmail, which talks about this return to what we used to call calisthenics, and that's this so-called old-fashioned way of doing exercises just using your own body weight. You don't have to be running the risk of pushing the big barbells around, and people feeling and seeing that, and there's some truth to this, gives you kind of a slim, fit, textured look, and big comeback there. Let's see if it continues. Well, if you're familiar with Bumble, that kind of an interesting dating type act, their stock is down. It dropped 91% since they came into being in 2021, and they're redoing how they're looking at dating. And that what they've done to, because they've dropped so much in price and dropped so much in viewers, part of their operation is called, it's a groups tab. And so rather than single one-on-one dating type of opportunities, they're promoting group meets, where it's just that people they'll follow, and in their local area, they'll see where a group is going to get together and do something. Those are seeming to pick up a watch, and let's see if that groups tab is going to have an increasing effect. There was a movie that came out last week, and people my age will be aware of it. It was called The Devil Wears Prada 2. This is the number 2. This movie came out quite a number of years ago, The Devil Wears Prada. It was a big hit. Now, when it got released, and we said here on this show, this is good, watch for it to see, let's see what kind of showing it gets. It was a $234 million worldwide release in its first week. That's not bad, but the audience, very interesting for the second showing now of The Devil Wears Prada a couple decades later. The audience, the vast majority, over 2/3, are people over 35 years old. And only in terms of men under 25, viewership 2%. So if you're going for the male market, Devil Wears Prada, don't look. That was more of a nostalgia type movie. Even women under 30, under 25, only 12% of the audience. So interesting to see where The Devil Wears Prada is going. Those are some thoughts for you over the weekend, folks. And now remember what's coming up. Yes, you guessed it. It's Mother's Day. Do not forget, coming up tomorrow. And if you're filling out something, handwritten cards, yes, buy a gift for sure, whether it's flowers or something elaborate. What's really flying off the Amazon shelf for Mother's Day is air fryers. I'm not advertising for Amazon, but air fryers coming in at around $70. You can pick one up. But also, yes, it's great to send a text, but you know what? Handwritten notes are having a bit of a comeback. Check in the Bible. This is interesting, even if you're not a Bible believer. There's a chapter there in what's called the book of Proverbs. If you flip over to there, Proverbs chapter 31, just kind of scroll down through there. You'll find some verse there that applies to your mom or to your wife. So take a look at that for Mother's Day and take that out and handwrite out that verse and say, Mom, this makes me think of you. I love you. Have a great Mother's Day, folks. A great weekend, and see you on Monday morning.